Let's say voice of love. Okay. Good morning. You're welcome to another edition of Study Time with the Word. My name is Hilda, and it's been an exciting time, an impactful time, always on every edition. Okay. We've been looking at we've actually been looking at diligence, okay, for the week. And today being Thursday, we are going to be looking at another scriptural example. Yesterday we talked about Elisha and his diligence and service to Elijah and the mantle of God on his life. And that's earned him a double portion. Even while he was long dead, his bones raised someone from the dead. You know, the power his bone carried the power still. All right, so today we're going to be looking at Joseph. The life of Joseph. Joseph is a very familiar story. As children, we are told about Joseph, the boy with a coat of many colors, whose brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery and all of that. But as we grow, as we get older, we seek deeper understanding and dimension to that story, seek a deeper revelation to that story. And then it now dawns on us that it wasn't just actually a story, it actually happened. It actually happened in the life of a man. That was mean, actually, by the brothers, okay? Now, we see that Joseph, even in slavery, he was faithful. He was faithful. And if you know the patterns of slavery, or when someone is in slavery, the first thing that comes to mind is to find a way to get free. Their freedom is their priority. How do I get out of here? How do I get out of these shackles? But we see who was still after the heart and the mind of God, you know, meaning, and we see also in the life of Paul that Paul was in prison, but he wasn't actually in a cage. Like, he wasn't caged. He was in prison, but really not in prison. You know, they put him there, but he wasn't there, because we see him write letters, we see him preach the gospel even to the prison warders. So we see that also in the life of Joseph. You know, Joseph's story as seen in Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37 verses 2b. Let's see how his story began. We see him always reporting to his father the very bad things his brothers were doing. So the first bad thing they did was not selling Joseph. You know, it was not betraying him. There were other things they were doing that Joseph was always reporting to the father, and they never liked him. You see that in verses 5. You see that in verse 5 to 10. Let's read that briefly. One night, Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever. So there was already hatred. You know, they didn't like him, you know, and nobody likes that child who always likes to report every other person, you know. Some persons who are probably the first, second, you know what I mean? In the family where you have like 5, 6 children or 10 children, and there's one that is always reporting the others, always, you know, we call it you will call it amebo. Always reporting every activity of the sibling. So one night Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever. Listen to this dream, he said. He wasn't sensitive to the fact that they didn't like him. Listen to this dream, he said. He was still after communicating his dream, not knowing that he was going to infuriate them further. Verse 7 says, we were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly my bundles stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. His brothers responded, so you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams. Not just one, not two. And the way he talked about them. So it's obvious that Joseph was fascinated by the dream, and he was so excited about it. So soon Joseph had another dream. That's another one again. And again he told his brothers about it. Listen, I have had another dream, he said. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. This time he told the dream to his father as well as to his brothers. But his father scolded him. What kind of dream is that? He asked. Will your brother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you? So Jacob interpreted the dream. He interpreted the dream. You know, the sun, moon, right? And 11 stars, the father, the mother, and the 11 brothers bowed low before him. You know, I read somewhere that the brothers were not even particular about the fact that they also were stars. They were shining. They were more particular about who they were bowing to. Which shouldn't be the focus. They were more particular about who they were bowing to, not the fact that they were stars. You know, when you're a star, you shine. They didn't pay attention to the fact that they were also going to shine and reign as stars. So they were more particular about Joseph. That's to tell you how much the hatred had blinded them. And so we see Jacob interpret that dream. And we see in verse 11, but while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dreams meant. Let's go ahead. Now we see Joseph's story beginning like this. But he was committed, even in his path with God, to the fulfillment of all of it. You know, we see a brother who betrayed, we see brothers who betrayed their brother, you know, and we see the one betrayed walking with God and being faithful in what he has been called to do. A lot of times, certain betrayals put us in the place of pain and bitterness, and we become a different person entirely. We carry a different identity altogether because somebody did something to you. You're letting your emotions control and drive how you react to people and how you react to things. Some persons, because they've been betrayed, they go all out to betray others. So we see a Joseph who was betrayed by his own brothers, still faithful and diligent. He had every excuse and reason not to be faithful in Potiphar's house. He has every reason to want to try to escape. He had every reason because he didn't do anything wrong. But he was still faithful. So we see we don't have a reason why we shouldn't be. That somebody broke your heart, or somebody betrayed you, somebody said terrible things about you. It's not enough reason for you to forfeit your walk with God or take on a personality, an identity that is not yours. So a lot of times one pain like that, we are all moody. 5 years we are on it. Life is moving, we are not moving. So we see Joseph go through all of this and still faithful and still diligent. Let's go through the story. Let's go through our points for today concerning the life of Joseph. Number one, we see his faithful service as a slave in the house of Potiphar's house to his liftings. We see him being lifted. Okay, let's look at Genesis chapter 39, verses 2 to 6b. The Lord was with Joseph. Like I said earlier, this is not just a story. It really did happen. Okay, it happened. Just like you are happening right now. It happened. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph. God is with a person and is so palpable. And your master, your bosses can see that God is with you. Just picture the character and the personality that he portrayed or he exhibited. Just picture his actions. Picture the way that he spoke. It was clear that God was with him. You know, but Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. Meaning that everything Joseph did prospered. He was successful at everything he did. And look at what verse 4 says. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. Be careful who you employ. Be careful who you entangle yourself with. You might have a wonderful business idea, everything set in place. Putting the wrong person there, everything goes dead. I tell you. See how Potiphar's house prospered because Joseph was there. Are you with me? Because Joseph was there. You know, looking at 6b. He says, let's look at 6, the whole of verse 6. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. How faithful can you be? How faithful can you be? Or your boss, your master, whoever it is you're under, you're submitting to, is not complaining about anything concerning you. Because, you know, when God is with you, you produce excellent results. You work excellently. Have you seen that? So we see everything that belonged to Potiphar flourish. Crops, flocks, everything he had flourished. Even in the midst of that, Joseph still faced injustice. Yet he remained steadfast in his commitment to God and his responsibility. We see Potiphar's wife lie against Joseph. And then Potiphar forgot the good and sent Joseph to prison. Some of us, I tell you, bitterness and unforgiveness would have been our life. Some of us would have struggled with it. Some of us, our prayer points will become, Lord, help me to forgive. Some of us will even say, I don't want to forgive him. I can never forgive him. We see him being faithful and being treated unjustly. Like I said earlier, be careful who you put in charge of things concerning you, concerning your business, your household, and finances. Having the wrong person in the team can bring down everything. A little leaven can leaven the whole lump. Look at how Potiphar's house prospered. His business is prospered. Family, everything prospering because, and it means that Potiphar is sensitive to know that things have changed and this man came. This is not how it used to be. And he saw that the Lord was with Joseph. So it means that Joseph preached more with his life than he spoke. How faithful, how diligent can we be? Some of us, we let pain rob us of success. Some of us, we let anger, bitterness, unforgiveness rob us of promotion, rob us of our lifting. We see Joseph go through all of this and still remain steadfast. Looking at Genesis chapter 50, verses 20. He says, you intended, talking to the brothers now, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. You see, that confirms what Romans 8:28 tells us. All things work together for good, for them that love God according to his purposes. Most of the times we cut the journey short and we don't let the hand of God find full expression in our life because we cut it short at the point of pain and anger. We cut it short, and the Lord is saying, keep moving. Yes, I know you're angry. Keep moving. This is not the destination. This is a route. You're not there yet. Keep moving. I have a plan. Keep moving. Let the pain go. Let the unforgiveness go. Keep moving. This is not the bigger picture. But some of us have let the pain, anger, and bitterness tie us down in a spot. And we are praying for God to do something for us that he has already done. All we needed to do is to go ahead and receive it and get it. So we let pain and anger and bitterness keep us in a spot. That's not good. So we see Joseph going through all of this and see, because most times until we are able to visualize this, until we're able to see the bigger picture of the story of Joseph, most times we'll never really appreciate what he went through. Most times also we'll never really be able to apply it to our own life, our daily lives. Like I said, it's not just a story. It happened just like you're happening right now. Praise God. Let's look at number 2. His unwavering diligence ultimately led to his elevation to a position of authority, where he played a pivotal role in saving Egypt and his own family from famine. His diligence was unwavering. Let's look at Genesis chapter 41, verses 41. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge. Let's look at the precedents before now. Pharaoh's, Potiphar's wife lied. Joseph was a fine boy. He was a fine boy. So Potiphar's wife started lusting after him. He was a very good-looking young man. And she seduced him, seduced him, but he would never do that evil against his master, and most importantly against God. So he ran away and forgot his clothing. And she held on to it and used it to frame him that he tried to rape her. Where did that end Joseph? Prison. So you see that thing they used to say, my wife used to control man. The wife is controlling the husband. You know, stand now. It's belong there. That story you watch in the home videos and movies is there. Pharaoh said to Joseph now in verse 41, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. I hereby put you in charge. Have you seen the lifting he experienced because he was able to stay with God? Stay with God's plan. Did he have this plan holistically? No. He just had a dream. As a young boy, he just had a dream. And he was excited. You know, when you have a dream that you are in, even you as young, you have a dream that you are in a palace lounging, you will not want to hear the interpretation. You are just excited that, man, I know I'm going to make it, but you don't know how. He was excited for these dreams. And he stayed, and not knowing that, you know, there's something I always say about my father. When God can give you a vision as to what your life can be, probably in your next few years and all of that. Don't get carried away. There are patterns, there are roadmaps to achieving that, to getting there. Because when your future is great, when you have a great destiny, your trials are even more. And what are those trials for? To build you and to build capacity for you to withstand all that he wants to commit to you. Imagine that Joseph didn't go through all of this. How would the liftings have happened? How would he have been able to handle that position? So he had built stamina over time by that experience to hold fast. And that's also caused him to carry the presence of God in a higher dimension. Because if Pharaoh would have a dream, he became an interpreter of dreams. He became an interpreter of dreams. And that was the giftings of God that brought about his lifting beyond just his obedience on his roadmap and journey to life. Let's look at number 3. Even in prison, Joseph was diligent. Go and when you go to the prison to see some prisoners, they are either sober, they are either sorrowful. Some of them have done nothing wrong. You see that with Joseph. There are people who have done nothing wrong that are in prison for no just cause. Either they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, or they were framed. It has happened to Joseph. Let's look at Genesis 39, verses 21 to 23. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. So even in prison, God was there. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. There was nowhere that Joseph went that he was not reigning. There was nowhere that he went that he didn't reign, that he wasn't noticed. He was never in obscurity. God being with him was so palpable. And look at what verse 22 says. It said, before long, meaning that it wasn't long, in a short while, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. Look at verse 23. The warden had no more worries. I'm beginning to wonder at this point, did Potiphar really miss Joseph? He didn't miss him. Like, oh, nobody, I don't think I can find a replacement for him. He didn't miss Joseph. Yes, he did, though. He did. How can you have someone who takes a whole lot of burden off you and the person leaves and you don't miss the person? And look at what it says. Because Joseph took care of everything. He had administrative abilities. He had managerial abilities. He had he was a dream interpreter. You see that? The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. Even inside prison, you will see, he was successful. So what then is success? Because some people are not in prison, but they're not successful. What then is success? That God is with you is success. There are other certain parameters that I can use to measure success. Yes, I know. I agree. But if God is not with you, that's what you call success? Nah. You know. Let's look at to further clarify, as much as we have all the parameters of success, when God is with you, every of these parameters will fall in place. Sound health, you know, sound mind, emotional stability, prosperity, abundance, wealth, peace, joy. Now let's look at so even in the midst of all of this, Joseph was still diligent. A lot of times we let situations around us, circumstances around us affect and limit our walk with God, because we dwell so much on the issues, forgetting the God who is with us. Let's look at number 4. Number 3, I said even in prison, Joseph was diligent. Joseph's experience in prison is a testament to God's presence and grace during difficult times. Even in the time you're going through, God is with you. You see that with Joseph. God was with him in all of that. No wonder King David said, "Yeah, I walk through the valley of shadow of death. I fear no evil, for thou art with me." So, number 4, Joseph's diligence and faith led to God's blessings, which changed his circumstances. Joseph was already successful. So, it changed him. There was a lifting that happened from prison. Everything he touched prospered. Even in the midst of difficult circumstances, as seen with Jacob, who became Israel. Jacob served Laban. He was cheated, and God was with Jacob. And later he became Israel. So most times we are in a hurry. A lot of us like to boycott process. We don't want to go through the process. We just want to have it and have it now. That's why we see people bribing their way into positions of authority and influence. If you bribe your way to be there, that means you have to keep bribing to stay there. Are you with me? Let's look at Genesis chapter 39, verse 23. We read that. So we see where he says, the Lord was with him in 23b, and caused everything he did to succeed. This is a model for how we can face difficult situations with faith and carry on with God's work, even when falsely accused. I can tell you, betrayal is hurting. I've been in a position where I've been falsely accused. I tell you, it's not a wonderful experience. But I knew in that season, in fact, for that day, I stayed with God. And the Lord made me, he said, give an offering. That's to the person who laid that false accusation. And then I gave an offering to the person. Was it painful? Yes. But I chose to obey God. Did I cry? Yes. Have I gotten over it? Long ago. I even tried to reach out to the person to assist in any way I could assist the person. It hurts, but it's something that we must grow beyond, grow above it. Understand that Jesus was betrayed. Understand that Joseph was betrayed. Understand that David was betrayed. Absalom, his son, rebelled against him. Understand that betrayal is part of the work. Betrayal is part of, if it doesn't come in the place of betrayal, it will come in the place of offenses. It's part of the work. Understand it and grow above it. Okay? We see in Genesis chapter 40, verses 13 to 15. Let's look at, my time is already up. We see the cupbearer who promised Joseph in prison, I'll put in a good word for you and all of that. Look at verse 13. After Joseph interpreted the dream, he says, look at Joseph and recounting his ordeal now. He said, and please remember me and do me a favor when things go well with you. Mention me to Pharaoh. He said, mention me to Pharaoh. So he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my hometown, the land of the Hebrews. And now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. The cupbearer was freed. Did he forget Joseph there? Yes, so how many years? 2 years. He forgot Joseph there. He forgot Joseph there. Was Joseph angry? No, the Lord was still with Joseph. Some of us put our faith and trust in man to help us come out of certain situations, and most times it's beyond their capacity. But we have placed them so high, so when they don't do it, we are disappointed, and then we start breeding anger and bitterness, unforgiveness. Joseph was still working with God. He forgot to. If the cupbearer had done as Joseph requested at that time, it would not have been a promotion. If the cupbearer had helped him and put in a good word and they brought out Joseph, that would not have been a promotion. It would have been that he's free, but he would have looked for a way to go back to his brother. And when famine had come, when famine came the time he did, all of them would have still died. Look at Genesis chapter 41, verses 1. 2 full years later, that's after that cupbearer came out. And then look at verses 9. The dream Pharaoh had reminded the cupbearer. He said, verse 9 says, finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Today, I have been reminded of my failure, he told Pharaoh. He reminded Pharaoh, there's somebody in prison that can interpret this thing. If Joseph was still in Potiphar's house, how would they have known? Are you with me? So it's important that we stay diligent. Do not let that emotional roller coaster. You're having mood swing. My emotions are going wild. Put it on that check. Build stability. Don't let it limit you from what God has in store for you. Stay in diligence, stay faithful. We talked about Elisha yesterday, we talked about Joseph today. I would advise that you look through this video again and listen to it. Joseph went through all that he went through, and God was with him. I hope we are blessed by today's edition. I have to stop here for now. Tomorrow we'll continue for another edition of Study Time with the Word. I believe that we are all blessed by today's teaching, and we thank God. We thank God for making all this possible. My name is Hilda. I'll be here again tomorrow for another edition of Study Time with the Word. And we're also having our Voice of Love teaching tomorrow by 12 noon, and it promises to be impactful. Thank you so much, and God bless you.